This stuff is getting to be like a piece of cake. I don't think there's anything else we can learn with video review. Let's see what our learner and preceptor are doing.
Doctor, I hear about my back. It's really sore, lower back and in my leg, going down my leg.
That's too bad.
But my leg, you know, it hurts, and my
I know,
back.
yeah.
Oh, but the pain, like you can't
The
believe
pain.
it. Yeah,
A lot of pain.
I tried Tylenol.
Okay. So, what were you planning on doing with this guy in terms of his back pain?
Well, it's pretty obviously just get that run-of-the-mill back pain. My back hurts. So I was just gonna probably throw him on the table, do a straight leg raise test, and maybe a couple Percocets to go.
So how do you know that it's not something more serious, like an aortic dissection or an aneurysm or cancer or kidney stones, maybe spinal cord impingement,
I don't know.
maybe
That's like textbook
renal colic, maybe something
minutia.
else?
Wasn't too worried about it.
So how can he be confident when he goes out of there that you've done a thorough job and that you know what's happening with him?
I don't know. I was just pretty confident.
Yeah, well, I can see that you're confident. Your confidence isn't what's at issue, right? What's at issue is whether or not you are doing a good job and a thorough job so that when he comes back next week, you can be confident that you've got the diagnosis right and not just confident that you've got him out of your office.
I'm confident to say that that learner was confident. I'm wondering if he was competently confident or incompetently confident. That's the question to ask. Am I right, Leslie?
So this scenario is another common scenario that preceptors will encounter. And that's where you engage in a feedback session and yet you seem to be going nowhere. It's like pulling teeth from the learner. In this particular example, the preceptor is trying to analyze the clinical reasoning skills of the learner. He's trying to get the learner to list a differential diagnosis or explain how he's come up with a single diagnosis. But it's painful to watch. The learner is completely disengaged. So there's a couple of strategies for these type of scenarios. The first strategy when analyzing clinical reasoning skills is you need to diagnose the learner. We need to know, why does the learner not generate a differential? Is it because they don't know enough information, or is there a problem with the application of knowledge? So I would encourage you to look at different teaching strategies like the 1-minute preceptor. The 1-minute preceptor is an excellent teaching strategy where we walk a learner through their case presentation. They present the case and then we ask them, what is the most likely diagnosis? What is your differential diagnosis? What information from the history, the physical, and your lab would support your diagnosis? Learners who know a lot usually can walk through that reasoning process, whereas learners who don't have enough information are unable to walk through that process. For novice learners, you as a preceptor could talk out loud and demonstrate that process to the learners so that they understand what type of behavior you're expecting from them.
So the 1-minute preceptor is a good resource in sorting out clinical reasoning skills. Any other pearls?
Another interesting point that this scenario brings up is the relationship between the teacher and the learner. We are often faced with learners that appear to be disinterested, maybe overconfident, maybe even insecure, and it's hard to engage the learners in a feedback scenario. So what I would encourage you to do is, again, take an interest in the learner. Outside of the feedback scenario, you want to know about their background. Maybe they have a PhD in physiology. Maybe they were a successful business person before they went into medicine. Maybe that's why they resent being taught, being treated like a learner and receiving feedback. So sometimes acknowledging their life history before they went into medicine will make them more open to your feedback.
Again, it's always about relationships. Someone should write a book on that. So what happens if a learner still does not get it? He or she remains overconfident and has reduced insight about their actual skill level and does not want to consider helpful or well-meaning feedback. Thoughts, Leslie?
So another common pitfall about feedback is we as preceptors try to win the feedback battle. Remember, feedback is a conversation, and the purpose of it is to try and improve the learner's performance. Sometimes learners will not agree with your perspective. So that step where you enter into negotiations, where you say, I think this is the target behavior, and they disagree, they don't think there's any problem with their behavior, you really can't go forward from that. Your responsibility as a preceptor is to observe them, to enter into feedback in a professional manner, keeping your feedback to specific behaviors that need to be improved, explaining the consequences of the behaviors and therefore the rationale for changing the behaviors. But if the learner still refuses to change the behavior, you need to take a step back and actually contact your program director or your site director, somebody who is in charge of the learner, and let them know what your concerns are. You don't need to get into an adversarial relationship with the learner.
You're right, Leslie. Nobody likes a fight. Hey, do you mind? We're trying to film a video here.